Imagine you are standing in the middle of a vast golden ocean. But this ocean is not made of water. It is made of sand. The dunes stretch out in every direction like giant, frozen waves that never break. The sun is just beginning to set, turning the sky into a beautiful palette of bright orange, soft pink, and deep, heavy purple. As the heat of the day fades away, a cool breeze begins to blow across the desert floor, carrying the scent of dry earth and the distant, comforting smoke of a campfire. In this world, there are no paved roads and no tall fences. The only paths are the ones written in the bright stars above and the ones remembered in the hearts of the people who live here. This is the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, a place where for thousands of years, staying alive depended entirely on the strength of your family and the honor of your name. This is the story of the great tribes of Saudi Arabia, the heart of the pride. It is a story about how a few powerful groups of people use their courage and their loyalty to turn a world of shifting sands into a unified and strong kingdom. We are going to look at the secret history of the families that lead the desert and find out why their ancient rules still run the modern world today. To understand the power of the desert, we first have to look at the concept of the tribe itself. In the ancient world, a human being standing alone was a human being in great danger. The desert was too big, too hot, and too harsh for just one person to survive on their own. To live, you had to be part of a pride, a group of people who shared the same blood, the same history, and the same future. This created a social bond that was stronger than any piece of iron. They called this bond Asabiya, which is a special word that means the spirit of the group. It means that if one person was hungry, the whole tribe shared their food until everyone was full. If one person was attacked, the whole tribe stood up together like a wall to protect them. This wasn't just about being a family that lived in a house. It was a military and political system that lived in the portable tents of the desert. The tribes were the first true governments of the sand. They were the ones who decided where the best water holes were hidden, how to protect the valuable camels, and how to keep the peace between different neighbors when times were hard. The most famous and powerful name in this landscape is the House of Saud, known as Al Saud. To most people in the modern world, they are a royal family that lives in magnificent palaces and drives fast cars. But in the very beginning, they were a tribal power that had to prove their worth to everyone else. Their story is one of ultimate unity. For hundreds of years, the Arabian Peninsula was just a collection of different tribes who were often fighting each other over the few green spots and water wells in the desert. The genius of the Al Saud family was not just their strength, but their ability to act as a balance. They didn't just try to conquer others with swords and force. Instead, they built bridges with their minds and their words. They realized that to make a real nation, they had to respect the pride and the history of every other tribe. They formed alliances through marriage, through shared faith, and through a deep respect for the Bedouin way of life. They became the center of a giant wheel, acting as the point that held all the different tribal spokes together. Their legitimacy and power today doesn't just come from their money. It comes from their long history as the keepers of the desert's unity. They are the glue that holds the many prides of the sand into one single kingdom. If we look even deeper into the ancient roots of the desert, we find a tribe called the Anizzah. This is one of the oldest and largest tribal groups in the entire Middle East. If the desert has a royal root, it is the Anizzah. They are the ancestors of many of the ruling families we see in the Gulf today, including the Al Saud and the Al Sabah family of Kuwait. For thousands of years, the people of the Anizzah moved across the northern plains, following the pattern of the rain and the growth of the grass. They were famous for their massive herds of camels that could walk for days without drinking, and their legendary horses that were faster than the wind. They were a power that crossed borders long before countries even had lines on a map. When you speak to a member of the Anizzah tribe today, you aren't just talking to a person. You are talking to a piece of a living history that stretches back to the very beginning of time. They represent the steady flow of the Arab spirit, showing that no matter how much the world changes around them, the root of the family stays exactly the same. In the central part of the kingdom, in a region called the Najd, there is another group known as the Knights of the Sand. These are the Otaibah. If you were to look for the most fierce, disciplined, and brave warriors of the desert, you would find them in the Otaibah. They are famous for their long military history and their code of honor. In the old days, they were the ones who guarded the important caravan routes that brought spices and silk across the land. They protected the heartland from invaders and were known for their grit and their ability to move across the hot, dry plateau with incredible speed and silence. Today, that warrior spirit hasn't disappeared. It has simply moved into the modern government. Many of the highest leaders in the Saudi military and the national security forces come from the Otaibah tribe. They have traded their horses and camels for modern technology and computers, but they have kept the exact same protector instinct that kept them alive for centuries. They are the shield of the kingdom, making sure that the peace that was won 100 years ago stays strong and safe for the children of the future. But the desert is not just a place of local power. It is a place of legends that cross across many different borders. This brings us to the tribe of the Shamar. The Shamar are a legendary group that is famous for their independent spirit and their love of freedom. Their history is centered in a beautiful place called Hale, where they built strong stone fortresses that still stand against the wind today. The Shamar were once a great rival power to the Al Saud, running their own desert empire for many years. They are unique because their influence and their families stretch far beyond the borders of Saudi Arabia, reaching deep into the countries of Iraq and Syria. They are known as the Northern Legend. They represent the idea that a person's first loyalty is to their people and their honor, rather than to a line drawn by a politician on a piece of paper. When you hear the beautiful poems of the desert or stories about the most generous hosts who would give their last piece of bread to a stranger, you are often hearing stories about the Shamar. They are a reminder that the desert has many different hearts, and every one of them is full of pride and a history of being free. Finally, we have to look at the tribe that is often called the root of all Arabs, the Khatan. In the social map of the desert, your status and your respect are often based on how far back your family tree goes into the past. The Khatan trace their family line all the way back to the very first people who lived in the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula. They are seen by everyone as the original Arabs. Because of this incredibly long history, they hold a massive amount of social status and respect, even in a modern city filled with skyscrapers, bright lights, and fast cars. A person from the Khatan tribe is looked at with a special kind of honor because of their ancient and pure bloodline. They are the social anchor of the South. They represent the purest form of tribal identity, and their ancient customs and traditions provided the blueprint for what we now call Arab culture. They show us that in the desert, the past is never really gone. It is a living foundation that supports every single thing built on top of it. They remind us that to know where you are going, you must first remember where you came from. As the sun finally disappears below the horizon and the first bright stars appear over the Saudi sands, try to imagine the deep silence of a tribal camp. Imagine the elders of these great families, the Al Saud, the Anizzah, the Otaibah, the Shamar, and the Khatan, all sitting together around a small, glowing fire. They aren't talking about money, oil, or modern business. They are talking about honor, lineage, and unity. They are telling the old stories of the great ambushes, the years of long droughts when the rain wouldn't fall, and the moments when shared peace was finally found. This is the heart of the pride. It is a world where a person's true worth is measured only by their loyalty to their pack and their ability to keep a promise. We see the result of that loyalty in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia today. It is a nation that was built not just by machines and gold, but by the social glue of the tribes that refuse to let go of each other. The primal gap between the simple nomadic tents and the grand royal palace is much smaller than you might think, because the people inside both of them still carry the same brave spirit of the desert. The journey of the Saudi tribes teaches us a very important lesson about social architecture. It shows us that you cannot build a strong house on top of shifting sand unless you have very deep and very old roots. It shows us that cooperation and working together is a much more powerful weapon than any spear or any gun. The tribes didn't just survive the desert, they mastered it by choosing to become one single giant family. They learned that the best way to be big and powerful was to always look after the small and the weak. They learned that the most important treasure in the world isn't something you find buried in the ground, but something you find in the trust of the person standing right next to you. This ancient wisdom is the secret engine that still drives the heart of the kingdom. It is the reason why their traditions are so strong and why their pride is so deep. They know that as long as they stay connected to their tribe, they can survive any storm that the world throws at them. As you drift away into the quiet of the night, listen to the internal rhythm of your own breathing and your own thoughts. You might be very far away from the golden sands of Arabia, but you are a descendant of the same pack instinct that kept these ancient tribes alive. Every human being has a deep need to belong, a need to have a pride that they can call their own. That same primal fire is burning inside you, the part of the brain that values loyalty and remembers the stories of the people who came before you. The desert is a very harsh and difficult teacher, and the tribes of Arabia were the star pupils. They taught us that even in the most empty and difficult places on earth, the human spirit can bloom like a flower if it has a community of hearts to support it. They taught us that we are always stronger together than we are alone. This strength was not just a tool for the sand, but a tool for the future. As the tribes began to move toward the coasts, the world began to change once more. The rules of the desert would soon meet the rules of the sea and the rules of the world's first governments. The journey moves now from the deep, silent dunes toward the bright, blue coast, where a different kind of pride was waiting to be born. It is a pride that would turn the bond of the family into the power of the vote, and the wisdom of the tent into the strength of a nation. The history of the heartland is only the beginning of the path, and the trail now leads us through the dust and toward the shimmering water of the shore. The story of the desert pride is moving forward, following the stars that shine just as bright over the new cities as they did over the old campfires, leading us toward the organized and powerful voices that were rising from the sand to meet the modern world. Imagine you are standing on the edge of a wooden dock as the sun begins to rise over the warm, turquoise waters of the Arabian Gulf. The air here is different from the deep desert of the Najd. It is heavy and sweet, with the smell of salt and the damp scent of the mud flats. Instead of the rhythmic swaying of a camel, you hear the gentle creaking of wooden boats called dhows as they pull against their ropes. The water is so clear that you can see the small fish darting between the pillars of the dock. For thousands of years, this coast has been the meeting place of two worlds. It is the place where the people of the sand became the people of the sea. This is Kuwait, a land that serves as a bridge between the vast emptiness of the desert and the busy trade routes of the ocean. This is the story of the parliamentary pride. It is a story about how the tribes of the desert took their ancient rules of loyalty and turned them into a modern system of organized power. We are going to look at the secret history of the families that rule the coast and the voting booths, and find out why the tribal bond is the most important political force in this modern nation. To understand Kuwait, we first have to understand the seafaring Bedouin. In many other parts of the world, people are either from the land or from the sea. But in Kuwait, the tribes managed to be both. During the long, hot summers, when the desert was too dry for the animals, the tribes would move toward the coast. They traded their tents for houses made of mud and coral, and they traded their camels for boats. They became master pearl divers and international traders. But even as they sailed as far as India and Africa, they never forgot the rules of the desert. They carried the Asabiah, the group spirit, with them onto the decks of their ships. If a boat was in trouble, every other boat from the tribe would rush to help. This mix of desert grit and seafaring wisdom created a very specific kind of person, someone who was independent and brave, but also deeply connected to their group. This is the foundation of the Kuwaiti identity. The largest and most influential tribe on this coast is the Al-Awazim. If you want to see the power of numbers, you look at the Al-Awazim. They are the original masters of the Kuwaiti shoreline. For centuries, they were the ones who knew every secret of the tides and every hidden spot for fishing. They built special wooden traps in the shallow water called Hadra, which used the rising and falling of the sea to catch fish without needing a net. The Al-Awazim were unique because they were one of the first tribes to settle down and build a permanent connection to the land of Kuwait. Because they have been here for so long and their families are so large, they hold a massive amount of power in the modern world. In a democracy, your voice is only as loud as the number of people standing behind you. Because the Al-Awazim are so numerous and so united, they are the kings of the vote. When an Al-Awazim candidate stands for parliament, they aren't just one person. They are the voice of a giant, ancient family that spans across the entire country. But the desert roots still run deep in Kuwait, and no tribe represents this more than the Mutayr. If the Al-Awazim are the masters of the coast, the Mutayr are the masters of the political engine. The Mutayr have a history that is legendary throughout the peninsula. They were once a great warrior power, known for their speed and their fierce protection of their territory. In the old days, they ruled the paths between the desert and the city. Today, that warrior energy has moved into the halls of government. The Mutayr are famous for being incredibly organized and very protective of their tribal interests. They understand that in a modern nation, the spear is the law and the shield is the group. They are known for being very vocal and very brave in their political stands. When the Mutayr speak in the Kuwaiti parliament, people listen because they know that behind those words is a tribe that values unity above everything else. They show us that the ancient desert pride hasn't disappeared. It has simply learned a new language, the language of the law. We also find the tribe of Al-Ajman, another giant of the region. The Al-Ajman are a bridge between two worlds. They have a massive presence in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, but they are also one of the most influential warrior tribes in Kuwait. The history of the Al-Ajman is one of movement and courage. They were known for their legendary hospitality and their ability to survive in the most difficult parts of the desert. In Kuwait, the Al-Ajman have turned that history of survival into a history of leadership. They are prominent in the military, the government, and the business world. They represent the warrior knight who has become a modern statesman. When you meet a member of the Al-Ajman, you are meeting someone who carries the weight of a history that involves great battles and great peace treaties. They are a reminder that the bonds of the tribe do not stop at a border or a fence. They are a network of blood and honor that stretches across the entire Gulf. The secret to why these tribes are so powerful in Kuwait lies in a very special place called the Diwania. To a stranger, a Diwania might just look like a large, comfortable room with cushions on the floor and coffee on the table. But in reality, the Diwania is the heart of democracy. Every evening, the men of the tribe gather in these rooms to talk. They don't just talk about the weather. They talk about the problems of the neighborhood, the new laws of the country, and who the tribe should support in the next election. The Diwania is where the social map is drawn. It is a place where an 18-year-old boy can sit next to an 80-year-old elder and learn the history of his family. It is a place where information flows faster than any news program. In Kuwait, the tribes use the Diwania to stay connected and to make sure that everyone in the pride is moving in the same direction. It is the modern version of the campfire, a place where the group spirit is kept alive every single night. This tribal organization has turned the Kuwaiti parliament into a very unique place. In many other countries, political parties are built around ideas or money. But in Kuwait, the political parties are often the tribes themselves. They work together to make sure their people have jobs, that their neighborhoods are safe, and that their history is respected. This is why we call it the parliamentary pride. It is a system where the ancient loyalty to the family has become a tool for running a modern city. Some people in the modern world think that tribes are a thing of the past, but in Kuwait, they are the engine of the future. They prove that you don't have to give up your roots to be part of a modern government. In fact, they show that your roots are the very thing that gives you the strength to stand up and be heard as you drift away into the quiet of the night. Try to imagine the sound of the Diwania. Imagine the low murmur of voices, the clinking of small coffee cups, and the scent of expensive incense filling the room. This is the sound of a people who know who they are. They aren't just citizens in a giant machine. They are members of a pack. They are part of the Al-Awazim, the Mutaya, or the Al-Ajman. They have a history that stretches back through the waves of the Gulf and the dunes of the desert. This sense of belonging is a powerful medicine against the loneliness of the modern world. It is the social armor that we talked about in our earlier journeys. It is a reminder that no matter how much the world changes, the human need for a pride stays the same. The journey of the Kuwaiti tribes teaches us about the strength of organization. It shows us that a group of people who trust each other can achieve anything. The seafaring Bedouins didn't just survive the transition to the modern world, they mastered it. They took the rules of the boat and the rules of the tent and used them to build one of the most vibrant and vocal societies in the Middle East. They learned that the most important power isn't the oil in the ground or the gold in the bank, but the number of hands that are willing to work together for a shared goal. This ancient wisdom is the secret behind the loud and proud voice of the Kuwaiti nation. It is a voice that refused to be silenced, even during the most difficult times of war and struggle. Take a deep breath and feel the cooling air of the coast. The desert is behind you, and the open sea is in front of you. You carry the resilience of the nomad and the vision of the sailor in your own heart. You are a survivor, born from a long line of people who knew how to navigate by the stars and how to stand by their family. The parliamentary pride is still beating today in the debates of the assembly and the conversations of the Diwania. Stay sharp, stay loyal, and most of all, stay connected to the people who make you who you are. The world is a vast and shifting place, but your tribe is the anchor that keeps you safe in the storm. This strength was a bridge to an even larger vision. As the tribes of the coast and the desert began to look toward each other, they realized that by joining their prides together, they could create something the world had never seen before. The journey moves now from the organized voices of the Kuwaiti coast toward the shimmering horizon of the south, where a group of different tribes decided to sign a pact of ultimate unity. It is a journey toward the federated pride, where the wisdom of many tribes became the power of one nation. The story of the desert pride is growing larger, following the coast toward the mountains and the plains where the lions of the sand were waiting to build a future of light and glass. The path is clear, and the stars are leading us toward the place where the many became the one, and the bond of the family became the law of a new empire. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a high, rolling dune just as the first light of dawn touches the world. In front of you, the desert is a deep, warm red, but behind you, the horizon is a shimmering line of bright electric blue. You are at the place where the empty sands of the Rub al-Khali meet the salt-scented air of the Arabian Gulf. In the distance, you see the silhouettes of giant towers made of glass and steel rising out of the ground like magic beanstalks. These buildings are so tall that they seem to touch the clouds, their windows catching the sunlight and reflecting it across the water like 1,000 diamonds. This is the United Arab Emirates, a land that looks like a dream of the future, but is built on a foundation as old as the earth itself. This is the story of the federated pride. It is a story about how a group of different tribes decided that their shared future was more important than their individual pasts. It is a story about how the coalition of the wise turned a collection of small fishing villages and hidden oases into a global powerhouse. We are going to look at the secret history of the families that lead the Federation and find out how the bond of the tribe became the strength of a modern nation. To understand the United Arab Emirates, we first have to understand the power of a super pride. In our earlier journeys, we saw how single tribes ruled the deep sands or the busy docks. But here, the story is about a coalition called the Bani Yas. Imagine 20 different tribes, each with its own history and its own pride, deciding to work together under one umbrella. For centuries, the Bani Yas were the masters of the landscape that stretches from the Liwa Oasis to the shores of Abu Dhabi. They were a people who knew how to live in two worlds at once. They were date palm masters in the deep desert and pearl masters in the shallow sea. This ability to be flexible and to cooperate is the secret ingredient of the UAE The Bani Yas didn't just survive the desert. They outsmarted it by building a network of trust that stretched for hundreds of miles. They proved that many small fires, when brought together, can create a light that the whole world can see. At the very head of this giant coalition is the House of Al Nahyan, the ruling family of Abu Dhabi. If the Federation has a steady heart, it is the Al Nahyan. Their story begins in the Liwa Oasis, a place of green palms and cool water, hidden deep inside the red dunes. For generations, the Al Nahyan led their people through the difficulties of the desert, learning the value of patience and the importance of looking after the weak. They were the ones who discovered that the island of Abu Dhabi was a safe place to settle because of its fresh water and its protection from enemies. The genius of the Al Nahyan, especially the legendary Sheikh Zayed, was his vision of unity. He realized that the oil wealth found beneath the sand didn't belong to just one family or one tribe. It belonged to the entire people. He used that wealth not to build walls, but to build schools, hospitals, and forests. He treated every citizen of the UAE like a member of his own tribe. Today, the Al Nahyan represent the federal power, the calm and wise leadership that ensures the 7 different parts of the country move forward as one single pack. As we move along the coast toward the north, the landscape begins to change. The red dunes get a little smaller, and the air gets even busier with the sound of trade and travel. This is Dubai, the home of the House of Al Maktoum. If the Al Nahyan are the steady heart, the Al Maktoum are the commercial lions. Their ancestors were a brave branch of the Bani Yas who decided to move to the mouth of a natural saltwater creek. They saw that the water wasn't just a place to fish. It was a highway to the rest of the world. For over 100 years, the Al Maktoum have been the masters of the visionary leap. They were the ones who realized that even when the pearls disappeared and the oil was still hidden, Dubai could survive by being the world's friend. They built giant ports, massive airports, and cities that look like they belong in a science fiction movie. They transformed Dubai from a quiet village of mud and coral into a global hub where people from every nation on earth come to work and play. The Al Maktoum spirit is one of infinite ambition. They show us that a tribe can keep its ancient honor while still leading the world in technology and business. They are the ones who turn the impossible into the everyday. But the history of the UAE is not just about the sands and the skyscrapers. It is also about the power of the sea and the strength of the sail. This brings us to the House of Al-Qasimi, the rulers of Sharjah and Ras Al Khaimah. For centuries, the Al-Qasimi were the most significant maritime and naval power in the entire Gulf. In the old days, the coast they ruled was known to the British and other outsiders as the pirate coast, but to the people of the region, the Al-Qasimi were the guardians of the water. They had a fleet of ships that was so large and so well organized that they could challenge the greatest empires of Europe. They were master navigators who knew the secrets of the monsoon winds and the hidden paths between the islands. Today, that history of naval pride has turned into a history of cultural and educational leadership. Sharjah is known as the cultural capital of the region, a place where the old stories, the beautiful books, and the ancient arts are protected and celebrated. The Al-Qasimi remind us that a tribe's influence is measured not just by its weapons, but by its wisdom and its memory. They are the keepers of the Arab soul in a fast-changing world. The secret to why these different prides, the Al-Nahyan, the Al-Maktoum, and the Al-Qasimi, work so well together is the concept of the federated pride. In 1971, these tribes did something that many people thought was impossible. They signed a pact to join their separate lands into one single country. They realized that in a world of giant nations and big companies, 7 small tribes standing alone would be weak, but 7 tribes standing together would be invincible. They built a system where each tribe keeps its own local pride and its own local rules, but they all share a single flag and a single future. This is the Bani Yas logic scaled up to the level of a nation. It is a world where the ruler of the largest tribe is the president, and the ruler of the most creative tribe is the prime minister. They created a social contract based on mutual respect rather than force. They proved that you can have a modern state without losing your ancient roots. They showed the world that the pack instinct is the best tool for building a civilization. As you drift away into the quiet of the night, try to imagine the sound of the wind moving through the palm fronds of the Liwa oasis and then whistling between the tall buildings of Dubai. Imagine the scent of the sea salt mixing with the smell of the desert rain. This is the atmosphere of the UAE. It is a place of extreme contrast. You can see a man using a high-tech computer in an office that is 80 stories high. But when he goes home, he still sits on the floor with his family to eat from a shared plate. He still knows his family tree back for 10 generations. He still values his honor above his bank account. This internal balance is the real miracle of the Emirates. It is the reason why the country feels so safe and so welcoming. The people haven't forgotten who they are. They have just learned how to use the tools of the future to protect the values of the past. The primal gap here is bridged by a bridge of gold and glass. But the feet walking across it are the same feet that once followed the camel tracks. The journey of the UAE tribes teaches us about the power of compromise. It shows us that true strength comes from being able to listen to others and find a common path. The lions of the coast didn't just survive the transition to the modern world. They defined it. They took the rules of the oasis, where water must be, shared for everyone to live, and applied them to the wealth of the nation. They learned that the most important power isn't the control of a single person, but the unity of the group. This ancient wisdom is the secret behind the Emirati dream. It is a dream that was born in a tent, but reached for the stars. It is a dream that shows us that no matter how much we build, we are only as strong as the people we are standing with. Take a deep breath and feel the quiet majesty of the desert night. The skyscrapers are glowing like lanterns in the distance, and the dunes are sleeping under the moon. You carry the flexibility of the pearl diver and the patience of the oasis farmer in your own heart. You are a survivor, born from a long line of people who knew how to turn a dry valley into a garden and a quiet coast into a global center. The federated pride is still beating today in the meetings of the Federal Council and the quiet conversations of the Majlis. Stay sharp, stay cooperative, and most of all, stay connected to the vision of a shared future. The world is a complex and often divided place, but the story of the UAE reminds us that the circle of trust can grow as big as the sky if we are only brave enough to reach out and hold our neighbor's hand. This strength was a foundation for an even more focused kind of power. As the tribes of the Federation showed the world how many could become one, another kind of pride was rising in a small peninsula nearby. It was a pride that didn't focus on large coalitions, but on the absolute mastery of the elite. The journey moves now from the many voices of the Emirates toward the concentrated and powerful center of the Qatari sands. It is a journey toward the elite pride, where a few family gangs turn to small land into one of the most influential places on the planet. The story of the desert pride is getting deeper and more intense, following the coast toward the place where the Thani were waiting to write their own chapter in history. The path is clear, and the stars are leading us toward the place where the bond of the family became the ultimate key to global influence. The story of the desert pride moves forward from the strength of the many to the power of the few, following the trail of the lions toward the elite of the sand. Imagine you are standing at the very tip of a narrow finger of land that reaches out into the warm, emerald waters of the Arabian Gulf. This is the peninsula of Qatar, a place where the desert is so close to the sea that the waves often wash over the salt flats, and the dunes seem to melt into the tide. The air here is still and heavy with the scent of the ocean, mixed with the dry, clean smell of the sun-baked stones. As the moon rises over the flat horizon, the modern skyline of Doha begins to glow like a collection of crystal jewels. These towers are not just buildings. They are symbols of a power that is concentrated and intense. In our earlier journeys, we saw how giant coalitions and organized voting blocks shaped the land. But here, the story is different. This is the story of the elite pride. It is a story about how a few very powerful family gangs took a small piece of land and turned it into one of the most influential places on the entire planet. It is a story about the mastery of the few, the strength of the inner circle, and the secret bonds that hold a nation together through absolute loyalty. We are going to look at the history of the families that lead the peninsula and find out how their focused vision created a brand that the whole world now recognizes. To understand Qatar, we first have to understand the power of concentration. In a large land, power is often spread out like the wind, but on a small peninsula, power is like a laser beam. It is sharp, direct, and very strong. For hundreds of years, the people of this land were master pearl divers and brave sailors. They lived in small, tight-knit groups where everyone knew everyone else's business. Because the land was small and the resources were rare, the families had to be even more loyal to each other than in the open desert. This created a social system where the family name became the ultimate key to everything. In Qatar, the tribe isn't just a background. It is the front and center of every decision. The rules of the elite are simple. You protect your own, you trust your blood, and you move as one single unbreakable unit. This concentration of purpose is what allowed a small group of people to move mountains and build a future that looks like magic. At the very center of this elite world is the house of Thani. If the peninsula has a master architect, it is the Thani family. Their story is one of incredible endurance and political genius. Unlike some other families who had massive armies, the Thani used their minds to navigate the difficult waters of history. In the 19th century, when the great powers of the world were fighting for control of the Gulf, the Thani family managed to balance all of them. They were the ones who realized that by unifying the different tribes of the peninsula under one banner, they could create a fortress of independence. Today, the Thani are more than just a royal family. They are the managers of the nation's soul. They hold nearly all the key positions in the government, the military, and the biggest businesses. They run the country like a high-performance team. Their power is not just about wealth, but about the legacy of presence. When an Thani leads, they are carrying the weight of a century of decisions that turned a quiet coast into a global hub. They represent the absolute pride, the belief that a small group with a big vision can change the course of history. As we look at the support system that keeps this center strong, we find the house of Al-Attiyah. If the Thani are the architects, the Al-Attiyah are the specialists of the shield. Historically, this tribe has been the most powerful group in Qatar after the ruling family. They are known as the masters of defense, security, and the essential engines of the state. For generations, the Al-Attiyah and the Thani have been joined together, not just by politics, but by the deep bonds of marriage and shared history. In the elite pride, marriage is a strategic alliance that creates a super bloodline. The Al-Attiyah represent the stability and the safety of the peninsula. Many of the most important ministers and security leaders carry this name. They are the ones who ensure that the vision of the center is protected from any storm. When you speak to a member of the Al-Attiyah, you are speaking to someone who understands that loyalty is a full-time job. They show us that in an elite system, the most valuable thing you can offer is your reliability. They are the silent pillars that hold up the roof of the nation, making sure that the peace and the prosperity of the peninsula stay solid and secure. But a modern nation needs more than just shields and architects. It also needs voices that can speak to the rest of the world. This brings us to the tribe of Al-Kuwari. If the Al-Attiyah are the shield, the Al-Kuwari are the intellectual pride. This family is prominent in the worlds of diplomacy, high-level business, and the most advanced parts of the government. They are known for being very progressive and for valuing education above all else. For a long time, the Al-Kuwari have been the bridge between the ancient traditions of the desert and the modern universities of the world. They are the ones who travel to distant capitals to represent the interests of the peninsula. They represent the refined spirit of Qatar. They show us that a tribe can be a center for art, science, and international conversation. In the elite circles of Doha, the Al-Kuwari name is a symbol of a mind that is open to the future, but rooted in the past. They are the ones who helped turn Qatar into a place where the world's greatest thinkers come to share their ideas. They remind us that the most important power of a tribe is its ability to learn and to grow. The secret to why these families, the Al-Thani, the Al-Attiyah, and the Al-Kuwari, run the peninsula so effectively is the concept of family. Stewardship. In many other countries, people work for a company or a political party, but in Qatar, people work for the honor of the name. This creates a level of motivation that money cannot buy. If you are a young person from an elite Qatari family, your primary goal is to make your family proud. You are trained from the moment you are born to be a leader, a diplomat, or a guardian. You are taught that your actions reflect on your ancestors and will affect your children. This generational thinking is the secret weapon of the elite pride. They don't just plan for the next year. They plan for the next 50 years. They look at the gas fields beneath the sea and the buildings in the city as a trust that they must manage for the future. They have created a system where the elite are also the servants of the collective good. This balance of power and responsibility is the reason why the country has moved so fast without falling apart. As we think about the rules of these families, we must also look at the role of the daughter. In the elite pride, the daughter is seen as the treasure of the lineage. She is the one who carries the culture and the values of the family into the next generation. For a long time, the rules for women in these tribes were very private and very protective. They lived in a circle of grace, shielded from the outside world. But today, that role is expanding in an incredible way. The daughters of the elite are becoming the leaders of education, health, and the arts. They are the ones building museums that are famous across the globe and running universities that are the best in the region. However, even as they become world leaders, they still follow the primal rules of the tribe. They still value their privacy, their modesty, and their deep loyalty to their fathers and brothers. They are the soft power of the elite pride. They show us that you can be a modern, powerful woman while still being the guardian of an ancient and beautiful tradition. They are the keepers of the flame, making sure that as the country gets richer, it doesn't lose its heart. As you drift away into the quiet of the night, try to imagine the atmosphere of a Qatari majlis. This is the private meeting room where the elders of the Al-Thani, the Al-Attiyah, and the Al-Kuwari sit together. The room is silent, except for the soft clinking of the coffee cups and the low, rhythmic voices of the men. Outside, The world is moving fast, but inside this room, time slows down. This is where the real decisions are made. This is where the elite pride is reinforced every single day. In this room, there is no such thing as a minor detail. Every word matters, and every gesture is a sign of respect. This is the social engineering that built the country. It is a world where the power of the few is used to protect the many. It is a reminder that in a world of chaos, a small group of people who trust each other completely can create a sanctuary of peace and light. The journey of the Qatari tribes teaches us about the power of focus. It shows us that you don't need a giant population to be a giant in the world. You only need a group of people who are willing to sacrifice their individual ego for the glory of the pride. The elite of the sand didn't just survive the transition to the modern world. They mastered the very tools that were supposed to replace them. They took the oil and gas of the modern age and used them to build a foundation for their ancient tribal values. They learned that the most important technology is still the human bond. This ancient wisdom is the secret behind the Qatari miracle. It is a miracle that was born in the small fishing villages, but now reaches into the boardrooms of the world's biggest banks and the stadiums of the world's biggest games. It is a miracle that shows us that no matter how much the landscape changes, the strength of the family is the one thing that remains constant. Take a deep breath and feel the intense calm of the peninsula night. The water of the Gulf is lapping gently against the shore, and the towers of Doha are watching over the sleeping land. You carry the precision of the pearl, diver, and the vision of the master. Builder in your own heart, you are a survivor, born from a long line of people who knew how to find the path through the salt flats and how to navigate the complicated paths of the world. The elite pride is still beating today in the corridors of power and the quiet gardens of the palaces. Stay sharp, stay focused, and most of all, stay connected to the inner circle of the people you love. The world is a vast and competitive place, but your pride is the fortress that keeps you safe and gives you the strength to stand tall. This strength was a signal to the rest of the world as the tribes of the peninsula showed the world how a small land could hold massive power. They began to realize that their influence was no longer confined to their own borders. Their names were becoming brands that were known in London, Paris, New York, and Tokyo. The journey moves now from the concentrated power of the Qatari sands toward the global stage, where a few specific names have become the ultimate transnational legends. It is a journey toward the final chapter of our story, where we will see how 5 specific tribal brands became the face of the entire region. The story of the Desert Pride is reaching its peak, following the trail of the elite toward the masters of the global horizon. The path is clear, and the stars are leading us toward the place where the bond of the family became the ultimate key to global influence. The story of the Desert Pride moves forward from the power of the peninsula to the influence of the world, following the trail of the lions toward the global legends of the sand. As the night deepens and the world goes silent, let the lessons of the elite pride sink into your mind. We have seen how the few can lead the many. We have seen how loyalty can build a city out of nothing. We have seen how the ancient rules of the desert have been polished like a diamond to meet the challenges of the future. The primal gap is bridged by a bridge of intelligence and absolute trust. You are part of this human story, a story of people who refused to be small, even when their land was narrow. You carry the spark of the elite in your own ability to focus and your own drive to protect your pack. Sleep now and let your dreams be filled with visions of grand towers and deep roots. The morning will bring the final part of our journey, where the desert pride takes its place on the global throne. The path is long, but we have walked it together, and the most important stories are the ones that never end. This brings our fourth part of the Desert Pride to a close. We have walked the salt flats of Qatar and seen the power of the alley. Thani, we have felt the shield of the Al-Atiyah and the wisdom of the Al-Kuwari. We have seen how the elite pride turned a small peninsula into a global giant. In the next chapter, we will look at the transnational legends, the top 5 tribal brands that cross all borders and define the entire Gulf region. We will find out how the Bani Yas, the Anizzah, the Shamar, the Al-Thani, and the Al-Awazim became the 5 names that every person in the desert knows and respects. Rest now, for the mind needs peace before it can face the global horizon. The shadows are long, but the fire of pride is bright. Sleep well and dream of the mastery. The elite are resting and the peninsula is at peace. The journey continues, and we are ready for the final step into the light of the global world. Imagine you are sitting in a high-rise office in the middle of London, or perhaps you are walking through the bright, busy streets of New York City or Tokyo. You look up and you see a name written in gold on the side of a massive building. You see that same name mentioned on the news, in the world of big business, and in the halls of international diplomacy. To a stranger, these names might just look like corporate brands or modern companies. But to anyone who understands the desert, these names are something much deeper. They are the transnational legends. They are the 5 specific tribal names that have grown so large and so powerful that they no longer belong to just one village or even one single country. They are the names that every person from the sands of Syria to the mountains of Oman knows and respects. This is the 5th part of our journey into the Desert Pride. It is a story about the ultimate super brands of the peninsula. We are going to look at the 5 giants, the Bani Yas, the Anizzah, the Shamar, the Al-Thani, and the Al-Awazim. We will find out how these family names became the face of a global culture and how they managed to keep their ancient honor alive while becoming some of the most influential names in the modern world. This is the story of how the pack instinct conquered the global horizon, turning the wisdom of the tent into a mark of excellence that the whole world now recognizes. To understand how a name becomes a global legend, we first have to look at the map of the heart. not just the map of the land. In our earlier chapters, we saw how tribes built kingdoms and controlled coasts. But some tribes were so successful at building alliances and moving across the sands that they became the foundations for everything else. Think of the desert like a giant web. In this web, some lines are thin and local, but others are thick and travel for thousands of miles. These thick lines are the transnational tribes. They are the ones who didn't let the lines drawn by politicians stop their family connections. They realized that their strength was in their scale. If you are a member of one of these 5 prides, you have a home in every city and a brother in every country in the region. This universal belonging is the secret to their global power. It means they can move faster, trust deeper, and plan bigger than anyone else. They are the lions of the peninsula who have learned how to roar in the language of the modern world. The first of these legends is the Bani Yas. In the modern world, the Bani Yas is synonymous with the miracle of the Emirates. If you see a skyscraper that touches the stars, or a port that handles half the world's trade, you are often looking at the work of the Bani Yas. But their legend is not just about buildings. It is about the coalition mindset. The Bani Yas proved to the world that you don't have to be one single bloodline to be a giant power. They are a super pride made of over 20 different tribes. They represent the ultimate form of cooperative intelligence. When the world looks at the Gulf today and sees a place of peace, progress, and extreme ambition, they are seeing the brand of the Bani Yas. They have become the global symbol of how the wisdom of the oasis can be applied to the wealth of the future. Their name carries the weight of a success story that changed the way the world thinks about the desert. They are the architects of the new world, using their ancient tribal glue to hold together a vision of light and glass. As we look for the root of the entire region, we find the second legend, the Anizzah. If the desert has an original brand, it is the Anizzah. This is perhaps the most respected name in the history of the Arabian Peninsula. Their legend is one of royal lineage. As we learned earlier, the ruling families of both Saudi Arabia and Kuwait trace their origins back to this giant tribal tree. Because of this, the Anizzah name is like a key that opens every door in the middle. East, they are the transnational root because their families are spread across Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, Syria, and Jordan. When an Anizzah member travels, they aren't traveling as a stranger. They are traveling as a member of the founding pride. Their legend is one of endurance. They have survived every war, every drought, and every change in government for over 1,000 years. They show us that some brands are so strong that they become the foundation of the culture itself. They represent the steady flow of history, the deep current that keeps the desert connected to its royal past. The third legend takes us to the north, to the tribe of the Shamar. The Shamar are the legends of the open horizon. Their brand is one of absolute independence. For centuries, they ran their own desert state, and their influence still stretches across the borders. of 3 different countries. When people in the region think of the Shama, they think of poetry, generosity, and brave resistance. They are the ones who reminded the world that the Bedouin spirit cannot be fenced in. Their transnational influence is a web of honor that connects the cities of the Naid to the plains of Mesopotamia. The Shama legend is the soul of the nomad. They are the ones who kept the stories of the desert alive when everyone else was settling down. Their name is a brand that stands for freedom and integrity. When you meet a member of the Shama, you are meeting someone who carries the pride of a people who refused to let their spirit be broken by any empire. They are the northern guardians, making sure that the ancient rules of the desert stay alive in the hearts of the new generation. In the small but intense center of the Gulf, we find the 4th legend, the Thani. While some tribes are known for their massive populations, the Thani brand is known for its elite mastery. In just a few decades, they have turned their family name into one of the most recognized brands in the world. They represent the modern elite. When you hear about the world's biggest sporting events, the most influential news networks, or the most sophisticated international investments, you are often hearing about the vision of the Thani. Their legend is one of strategic focus. They proved that a small pride could have a bigger voice than a giant nation if they only had the intelligence and the loyalty to move as one. They have become the global brand of influence. They show the world that the desert pride is not just a history of the past, it is a tool for the future. They have taken the ancient mastery of the peninsula and turned it into a mastery of the global conversation. They are the ones who proved that the family unit is the most powerful investment firm in the history of the human race. Finally, we have to look at the strength of the people in the legend of the Al-Awazim. The Al-Awazim are the majority brand. In Kuwait, they are the most numerous tribe, but their influence is a transnational story of community, power. They represent the voice of the many. Their legend is one of rooted success. They were the ones who mastered the coast and the sea, and today they are the ones who master the organized vote and the community center. The Al-Awazim brand is one of reliability and unity. They show us that a tribe can be a modern political force without losing its ancient social bonds. They are the anchors of the coast. Their name represents the solid foundation of the Kuwaiti nation. When people think of the Al-Awazim, they think of a pride that is too large to ignore and too united to defeat. They remind us that the most important power of a tribe is not its gold or its weapons, but the number of hands that are willing to hold each other in the dark. They are the social fabric of the region, the thread that holds the community together. The secret to why these 5 names, the Bani Yas, the Anizzah, the Shamar, the Al-Thani, and the Al-Awazim, became global legends is the brand of honor. In the modern business world, companies spend billions of dollars trying to build trust. But in the desert, trust was earned over thousands of years through lineage and character. These tribal names are the original guarantees. When someone carries one of these 5 names, they are carrying a certificate of history. They are telling the world that they come from a line of people who were smart enough to survive the Ice Age and brave enough to build the future. This is the primal gap at its most beautiful. It is the moment where the ancient survival instinct meets the modern global market. These tribes didn't just survive the transition to the modern world. They branded it. They took the spirit of the pride and turned it into the standard of the region. As you drift away into the quiet of the night, try to imagine the global web of these 5 legends. Imagine a map where lines of light connect London to Abu Dhabi, New York to Doha, and Paris to Riyadh. These aren't just lines of money or oil. They are lines of blood and honor. They are the paths of the transnational prides. This sense of global connection is the new social armor. It is the realization that no matter where you go in the world, your pride is there with you. It is a reminder that the human need for a pack is not a local thing. It is a universal thing. The 5 names are the guardians of this truth. They are the ones who ensure that the desert spirit is never lost. No matter how many oceans it crosses or how many languages it speaks, the journey of the transnational legends teaches us about the power of scale. It shows us that if you want to change the world, you have to be big enough to be seen, but small enough to still care for your own. The 5 giants didn't just survive the end of the nomadic way of life. They scaled it up to meet the challenges of a global civilization. They took the rules of the camp, where everyone has a place and every name has a meaning, and applied them to the boardrooms of the world. They learned that the most important global asset is not the technology you own, but the history you represent. This ancient wisdom is the secret behind a global Arabian brand. It is a brand that was born in the dust, but now shines in the light of the stars. It is a brand that reminds us that we are only as strong as the roots that support us. Take a deep breath and feel the expansive calm of the global night. The world is a very big place, but it is a place that can be understood through the stories of the prides. You carry the ambition of the Bani Yas, the lineage of the Anizzah, the independence of the Shamal, the focus of the Thani, and the unity of the Al-Awazim in your own human potential. You are a survivor, born from a long line of people who weren't afraid to move across the horizon and make their mark on the world. The transnational legends are still being written today, in the deals that are signed and the bridges that are built. Stay sharp, stay global, and most of all, stay connected to the great names of your own history. The world is still a mystery, and your pride is the compass that helps you find your place in the global sun. This strength was the final piece of the puzzle of power. We have seen how the tribes unified the sand, how they organized the vote, how they federated the coast, and how they mastered the elite. We have seen how their names became the legends of the planet. But there is one last secret to the desert pride that we haven't yet explored. It is the secret that lives in the heart of every tent and every palace. It is the secret that ensures the pride will live on for another 1,000 years. The journey moves now from the global stage back into the warm center of the family circle. It is a journey toward the final and most important chapter of our story, the daughter's path. It is a journey toward the rules, the influence, and the lives of the women who are the true keepers of the pride. The story of the desert pride is coming home, following the light of the fire, toward the ones who pass the names down to the children. The path is clear, and the stars are leading us toward the place where the bond of the family is protected by the wisdom of the heart. The story of the desert pride moves forward from the power of the world to the strength of the home, following the trail of the lions toward the daughters of the sand. As the night deepens and the world goes quiet, let the lessons of the transnational legends sink into your mind. We have seen how 5 names can define a region. We have seen how honor can travel across borders. We have seen how the ancient rules of the desert have become the blueprint for global influence. The primal gap is bridged by a bridge of legacy and absolute belonging. You are part of this human story, a story of people who refused to be forgotten even when the world became vast and vast. You carry the spark of the legend in your own ability to connect and your own drive to protect your name. Sleep now and let your dreams be filled with visions of global paths and deep royal roots. The morning will bring the final part of our journey where the desert pride reveals its true heart. The path is long, but we have walked it together, and the most important stories are the ones that are told by the mothers to their children. This brings our 5th part of the desert pride to a close. We have walked the global stage and seen the power of the 5 giants. We have felt the scale of the Bani Yas and the endurance of the Anizzah. We have seen how the Shamar, the Thani, and the Awazim turned their family names into the legends of the modern age. In the final chapter, we will look at the heart of the home, the specific rules, the hidden influence, and the beautiful lives of the daughters and women of these tribes. We will find out how the silent power of the woman is the thing that truly holds the desert together. Rest now, for the mind needs peace before it can find the final heart. The shadows are long, but the fire of pride is bright. Sleep well and dream of the legacy. The giants are resting, and the world is at peace. The journey continues, and we are ready for the final step into the light of the home. Imagine you have left the bright, busy streets of the modern cities behind. You have walked away from the tall glass towers of Doha and Dubai, and you have moved past the massive government buildings of Riyadh. You are traveling back in time, following the long, purple shadows of the evening as they stretch across the dunes. You reach a quiet camp where the fires are being lit. You hear the deep, rhythmic voices of the men talking in the distance, but your eyes are drawn to a different part of the camp. You see the warm, soft light glowing through the fabric of a private tent. Inside, there is a world of incredible color, the scent of expensive oud, and the sound of soft laughter and clinking gold. This is the world of the women of the tribe. For thousands of years, the world has seen the desert pride through its kings, its warriors, and its merchants. But the true secret of why these tribes survived for so long is found here, in the Daughter's Path. This is the final part of our journey. It is a story about the silent power of the woman. It is a story about the rules, the influence, and the beautiful lives of the ones who are the real keepers of the pride. We are going to look at how the Daughters of the Sand became the guardians of the lineage, the teachers of the honor code, and the bridge that connects the ancient past to the high-tech future. To understand the life of a tribal daughter, we first have to look at the logic of the lineage. In the desert, a name is not just a label. It is a fortress. If you lose your name, you lose your protection. The women of the great tribes, the Anizzah, the Shamar, the Bani Yas, and the Thani, were born into a system where they were seen as the treasures of the house. From the moment a girl was born, she was told that she was the guardian of the family honor. This wasn't a burden. It was a position of extreme status. In the primal childhood of the desert, a daughter was treated with a special kind of gentleness and protection. She was the pearl of the pride. The rules for her life were built on the idea of Hema, or sanctuary. She was shielded from the harshness of the outside world, so that she could focus on the most important job in the tribe, the preservation of the culture. She was the one who would carry the blood of the ancestors into the next generation. Because of this, her education was different. She didn't just learn how to survive the heat. She learned the poetry, the history, and the complicated social maps of every family in the region. The social rules for women were based on the power of the private. In our modern world, we often think that power only happens in public, in front of cameras, or in big meetings. But in the desert pride, the real decisions were often made in the women's majlis. This was a private gathering where the mothers, aunts, and daughters of the tribe would meet. While the men were outside talking about camels or borders, the women were talking about alliances. In a tribal society, the most important political tool is marriage. A marriage between a daughter of the Otaibah and a son of the Al-Saud wasn't just a wedding. It was a peace treaty. It was a bridge between two giant prides. The women were the architects of these bridges. They were the ones who knew who could be trusted, who was brave, and which families would make the strongest partners. A mother in a tent had more influence over the future of the kingdom than 100 soldiers, because she was the one who decided which bloodlines would join together. Her silent advice shaped the map of the peninsula for centuries. The Daughter's Path was also a path of cultural literacy, because the desert was a world without books for a long time. The history of the tribe lived in the memories of the people. The women were the living libraries. It was the mother's job to teach her children the song lines of their ancestors. She was the one who told the stories of the great generosity of the Shamar, or the legendary bravery of the Khatan. She taught the children the language of honor, how to speak to an elder, how to welcome a guest, and how to stay loyal to the pack. This is why the desert pride is still so strong today. Even in a world of smartphones and the internet, a young man in the Gulf still knows his family tree back for 10 generations because his mother sang it to him when he was a baby. The women were the foundations of the human mind. They ensured that the primal sharpness of the tribe was never lost, even as the tents were replaced by mansions. We must also look at the rule of the circle. In the tribe, a woman was never truly alone. She lived in a sisterhood of the sands. Whether they were in the deep desert or the coastal villages of Kuwait, women worked, cooked, and raised children in a tight, supportive circle. This created a social armor that protected them from the stresses of life. They shared the weight of the work and the joy of the celebrations. This interdependence is the secret to their resilience. A tribal daughter grew up seeing that her strength was multiplied by the women around her. This created a sense of collective pride. She didn't measure her worth by her individual likes or her fame, but by her place in the circle of the family. She knew that if she was in trouble, 20 other pairs of hands would reach out to hold her. This deep belonging is the reason why tribal traditions have survived the transition to the modern world so much better than many other cultures. The circle of the home was a fortress that the digital fog could not penetrate. The rules of modesty and privacy were also a central part of the daughter's life. To an outsider, the long black robes and the veils might look like a way to hide women. But to the women of the desert prides, these were symbols of status. They were a way of saying, I am not for everyone to see. I belong to a pride that protects me. Modesty was a choice of exclusivity. It was a way of keeping the gems of the family safe from the eyes of strangers. This privacy gave women a unique kind of freedom. Inside the home, the robes were removed, and the world was filled with the finest silks, the brightest jewelry, and the most intense perfumes. The internal world of the women was a place of extreme luxury and high fashion long before the first boutiques opened in the cities. They were the masters of aesthetics, creating a world of beauty that was meant only for the people they loved and trusted. This hidden grace is a vital part of the Arab soul. It teaches us that the most valuable things in life are often the ones that are kept for the inner circle. As the world began to change and the oil began to flow, the daughter's path took a new and exciting turn. The tribes realized that if they wanted to lead the world, their daughters had to be the most educated and capable people on the planet. The leaders of the Gulf, men like Sheikh Zayed of the UAE and the kings of Saudi Arabia, pushed for a revolution of the mind for their women. They built universities that were the best in the region. They encouraged their daughters to study medicine, law, engineering, and art. Today, we see the results of this vision. The daughters of the great tribes are no longer just silent influencers in the tent. They are the visible leaders of the world. They are the ministers of government, the CEOs of giant companies, and the curators of world-class museums. But here is the miracle. Even as they lead global organizations, they have not left the daughter's path. They still carry the same tribal code, in their hearts, they still value their family name above everything else. They still practice the modesty and the hospitality of their grandmothers. They have bridged the gap between the Stone Age heart and the Space Age mind. One of the most beautiful roles of the modern tribal woman is as the guardian of the arts. In Qatar and the UAE, it is the daughters of the elite prides who are building the giant museums and the cultural centers. They are the ones who are making sure that the poetry of the desert and the weaving of the Bedouin are not forgotten. They are using the soft power of culture to tell the story of their people to the rest of the world. They are the ambassadors of the soul. They show us that you can be a modern, powerful leader while still being a devoted daughter and a loyal member of the pack. They are the ones who are proving that progress doesn't have to mean loss. You can have the highest education in the world and still sit on the floor with your mother to drink coffee and eat dates. This internal balance is the real success story of the Arabian Peninsula. It is the victory of the human bond over the machine age, the journey of the tribal. Women teaches us about the power of stewardship. It shows us that a culture only survives if someone is willing to look after its heart. The keepers of the pride didn't just survive the end of the nomadic life. They managed the transition with incredible wisdom. They took the rules of the home, where kindness and respect are the most important laws, and applied them to the building of nations. They learned that the most important infrastructure is not the roads or the bridges, but the social fabric of the family. This ancient wisdom is the secret behind the stability of the Gulf. It is a stability that is built from the inside out, starting with the mother in the house and reaching up to the king on the throne. It is a reminder that a nation is only as strong as its homes, and a home is only as strong as its women. As you drift away into the final quiet of our journey, try to imagine the continuity of this story. Imagine an ancient woman sitting by a fire 30,000 years ago, sewing a fur coat for her daughter. Then imagine a modern woman in a high-rise apartment helping her daughter with her homework. They are separated by thousands of years and miles of history, but they are doing the exact same thing. They are keepers of the spark. They are the ones who ensure that the human spirit is passed from one hand to the next. You carry the resilience and the love of these women in your own potential. You are a survivor, born from a long line of people who knew that the most important work in the world is looking after the people next to you. The daughter's path is not just for the desert. It is a path for all of us. It is the path of connection, the path of memory, and the path of the heart. Take a deep breath and feel the quiet peace of the finished story. The desert is wide, the tribes are strong, and the history is deep. We have seen how the heart of the pride unified the sand in Saudi Arabia. We have heard the parliamentary pride speak its organized truth in Kuwait. We have seen the federated pride build a future of light in the UAE. We have felt the elite pride focus its power in Qatar. We have watched the transnational legends conquer the global horizon. And now, we have returned to the warm center of the home. The circle is complete. The Desert Pride is not a ghost of the past. It is a living, breathing reality that continues to change the world every single day. The stars are shining bright over the dunes and the cities, and the fire of the tribe is still burning, protected by the wisdom of the ones who carry the name. The journey through the primal gap and the silent empires has led us here to the realization that the most powerful thing we own is our identity. Our history is the map that tells us who we are. Our tribe is the pack that keeps us safe, and our pride is the fire that gives us the courage to face the unknown. Stay sharp, stay loyal, and most of all, stay connected to your own roots. The world is a vast and often confusing place, but as long as you know your name and you know your people, you will never be lost. The chronicles of the desert are finished, but your own story is still being written. Make it a story of honor. Make it a story of kindness. Make it a story of pride. The wind is soft now, and the night is full of dreams. The lions of the sand are resting, and the daughters of the sun are watching over the sleeping world. The journey is over, and the path is yours to walk. You are a part of this ancient and brave human family. You carry the spark of genius and the power of the pride in your own blood. Sleep now and wake up ready to build your own legacy. The morning will bring a new day, and the world is waiting for you to see it with your own eyes. The fire is out, but the light is forever. Good night, survivors. Good night, thinkers. Good night, world. The pride is safe, and the story is complete.